Their opponents have not only rejected our invitation, but have falsely characterized the process. They charged that they were invited only as an afterthought when the Democrats had committed to appearing this evening. In fact, all four candidates were invited in a single email that I sent on April 29th. I have a printout of it right here. Anybody who'd like to read it after the discussion is welcome to do so. The Republicans have charged that in accepting our invitation, their opponents use bully tactics to force them into a political environment. That is downright laughable. The Republicans put themselves in a political environment when they decided to run. They decided to run, moreover, for the council, whose members are expected to debate the issues. That's a strange choice for people who are unwilling or unable to debate. Okay, as in the past, the candidates have been asked to avoid personal attacks, even personal attacks on absentees. Everyone else should do the same, even though perhaps the absentees have ignored that rule. We hope for a vigorous but civil discussion of the issues important to Garwood. Unlike Borough Hall and the school, this is private property. So if you ignore the rules, you'll be asked to leave. Now, a couple of years ago, a Garwood resident suggested that we begin these proceedings with a brief description of a council member's rights and responsibilities. Council is the legislative body of the municipality. It can pass ordinances and resolutions, control municipal finances, and create offices and positions. Its role is to legislate and set policy. Individual council members who serve 3-year terms have no authority to act except as a group. A council member may not attempt to influence the activities of any borough official or employee. Finally, the council does not oversee the school board, which is a separate entity. So that's what's at stake. Here's how we'll proceed tonight. We'll have 3-minute opening statements. I'll call upon the candidates in alphabetical order. John Nolan, our expert timekeeper, will give them a 1-minute warning when they have 1 minute left. I will ask questions after the opening statements. I will ask questions submitted by the public or questions devised by our committee. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond, again with a 1-minute warning from the unfailing John Nolan. Then we will have 3-minute closing statements. Okay, opening statements. Russ Graham has lived in Garwood for 26 years. He has served 4 years on the borough's Board of Education. He's retired as the co-owner of a small business. He's a veteran of the U.S. Navy during the Vietnam War, and he holds a computer science degree from Raritan Valley Community College. Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Bill. And thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you to the Point for hosting tonight. My wife, Julie, and I made Garwood our home almost 27 years now, and we never considered moving. Job and career changes brought us here, but contentment and wonderful neighbors made it easy to stay. Even though we never had children of our own, we watched our neighbors' kids grow up and thrive thanks to the great schools here and in neighboring towns. Our 2 careers absorbed us completely, and we kept a low profile for many years. As my career wound down, I endeavored to take a role in town matters. That led me to serving on the Board of Ed for 4 years. Serving on the board led me to become a substitute teacher at Lincoln School. I'm happy to be here, and I look forward to answering your questions to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Sarah Tedisco is a fourth-generation Garwood resident. She has served on council since 2011 and is its president, as well as chairwoman of its finance committee. She is president of both the Education Foundation of Garwood and the Garwood Lions Club. She is a social studies teacher at Chatham Middle School. She holds a degree in history with minors in education and business from Northeastern University. Ms. Tedisco.
Thank you, Mr. Conlon. And thank you again to the Point Board for hosting this wonderful debate, or should I say discussion. And it's been going on here in Garwood for the last 6 years. I was happy to come here 3 years ago and honored to be elected that year. And with that introduction, I think it took about half of my opening away. So thank you for that, Mr. Conlon. So I'm definitely very proud to be a fourth-generation Garwood resident. There's a reason why in this town families choose to stay, like mine did, generation after generation. And I'm truly touched by all those that have actually chosen to make Garwood their home. And I think what keeps that all together is our tight-knit community and the fact that we offer a great value, which is what I'm looking to do if elected to the council again, to keep Garwood a great value that it is for its citizens. And just one example of that, Russ and I have been walking door to door every weekend since Labor Day, and we met someone who actually rented over here at the Lofts, the beautiful apartments across the parking lot, with his wife. So when it was time to buy a home, they purchased a home in another town, actually. For whatever reason, the fit really wasn't great, and they decided to move back to Garwood to buy a home here in this town. I think that's a true testament to the value our town offers and the community that we have here. We have great people here in Garwood, and I've been honored to represent you, and I hope you'll give me 3 more years. 3 years ago, I told you I was your 24/7 council person, and that's still true today. I'm just as driven on the council. I'm just as energetic as I was then, if not more so, and I look forward to hopefully continuing to serve the residents of Garwood. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, first question. A couple of years ago, I took some grief from the then mayor for referring to the athletic complex as an embarrassment. Well, I'm here to tell you it's worse than an embarrassment. It was overpriced at more than $3 million. It took far too long to construct, and its meeting space is inadequate. Now we've learned that the building is defective. It's been closed for months and will require $47,000 in repairs. How did we get into this mess? Who's going to pay for the repairs? And what would you do to ensure that the borough's next project is more carefully planned and executed? Mr. Britt.
Well, I have limited knowledge of the rec complex, having not been involved in any step of the way. But obviously, it's a travesty. There's no denying it. It's very disappointing for our town to have gone through all of that turmoil and struggle to only end up with a huge headache and embarrassment, quite frankly. So I think it's only fair to say that each and every one of us serving on the council, and if I'm so elected, do a better job of reviewing and demanding better designs, just better oversight. Whatever better describes would have been called for in this case, and the town would have been better served, certainly. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. It'd be absolutely wrong to do that. I think we need to move forward. We need to get the place fixed. And it's been discussed that perhaps then we can go after some type of litigated settlement, perhaps. I mean, it could turn out to cost us much, much more than the repairs are going to cost. So in the end, what do we gain? But the point is, we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. I would support that, and I think that's the best way to move forward.
Mr. Disco.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly. Well, as someone who's been on the council for this, it's been much more than a headache. It's been hurdle after hurdle, and it was a long time in the making. The citizens of Garwood had for years spoken about how they wanted to see change there and revamping of that area. You know, to argue the details now would probably not be the most productive. What elections are about are the future. So essentially, you know, this has been extremely frustrating for me as a council person, and you know, we all want this fixed as soon as possible, and that's why at the last council meeting we finally were able to accept a bid that was put in to get that door fixed over there. But I think it is important to note, as Mr. Graham did, you know, this is an area of potential litigation because, of course, we don't want any more tax dollars spent on this project. However, I think it's important to point out that even with this $47,000 repair, that I'm not too happy about that we've gotten to this situation. Like I said, it's been extremely, extremely frustrating. Thank you. That, you know, we are limited to what we can say, but I can tell you this, that the project is not over budget, even with this additional hurdle that we're facing. And it is important to also note that it's only been the building shut down right now. The complex itself has been very well used and has still been bringing in to the tune of $20,000 a year in rentals. So that's been existing right now. And I think it's why we need Mr. Graham on the council, because somebody with the business experience and the contractor experience, he can review plans, and I think he would be a real asset to the council and to the town.
Okay, next question. There have been discussions on the council about prioritizing DPW expenses. Apparently moving some funds from repaving projects to allow for the timely replacement of old equipment. So is this the best solution to the equipment problem? Would it ultimately raise taxes? What would you do to ensure that it does not have an adverse impact on street maintenance? Mr. Graham.
Well, I mean, you know, the streets are something that we use every day, and they're the most high-profile thing in town. When people talk to us as we go to door, when are you going to pave my street? And quite frankly, I'm in that boat. I mean, I live on a cul-de-sac, so we'll probably be the last on the list. But I can tell you that the cul-de-sac is in terrible shape. There's a lot more traffic on it than people realize, because people still think they can whiz on through to Westfield, and they come down and they turn around and they whiz on out. And when the plows come, they have to plow literally 10 to 20 times, again and again and again, to push the snow to the end of the cul-de-sac. So that's high profile. We get that. But we also have many, many complaints about the lack of a street sweeper. You know, people went an entire year without seeing a street sweeper, and quite frankly, when my side of town did get swept, it was more like the thing was pushing dirt around.
1 minute.
So it's ineffective, it's past its useful life, it definitely needs to be replaced. We have a shared service agreement with Fanwood. They did eventually free up some time for us to have a street sweeper do the south side. Some streets were not done. You know, the ones that didn't get it obviously are very unhappy. We need to look at these capital expenses well in advance. We need to know what's around the corner, not tomorrow or a month from now, but even 5 years or 10 years from now, so that we're better prepared when we need to, as a town, to invest in the capital goods and to continue to keep our streets in good working order.
Mr. Isco.
Thank you. Well, I really wish I had more than 3 minutes to answer this question. It's very important. Mr. Connolly hits home a good point in the question, that it's a balance between taxes and services here in Garwood. And like I spoke about earlier, it's all about that value and that balance, and that's what we need to achieve. When it comes to equipment and roads, as a member of the Finance Committee, I've been working on that, creating a deeper capital plan. When I first got on the council, it was 3 years. Now we've moved it to a 5-year capital plan. And another thing I want to bring up at this time with the expense of equipment and roads, it's expensive. One block of roads could be $100,000. DPW truck could be like the garbage truck that we just authorized this year, could be close to $200,000. These are not cheap pieces of equipment, and it's not cheap to do the roads. However, Garwood's debt level right now is 1/7 of what the state permits. So 1/7, not even 1/2, 1/7. So I think with interest rates so low, under 2%, we have to look real hard and invest in Garwood so that we can sustain ourselves as a community. And finally, I want to say this is exactly why Russ and I came up with the idea of a citizens advisory panel on capital projects like this. So we can involve residents, we can hear from you about what you think that balance should be between roads, between equipment. Obviously, we would love to do everything, but you can't. It's just too much money. So it's about striking that balance and involving the public further would be fantastic to have. And people have already expressed interest in joining, so I think that maybe seven-member panel might be much larger. At least the interest is there, which is fantastic. Thank you.
Bill, clarification time, 2 minutes on the questions, right? Yes.
Okay, another question. We could spend all evening on questions about redevelopment projects planned for South Avenue. Questions about their size, number of units designated as affordable housing, number of available parking spots, number of bedrooms, and so on and on and on and on. Here's a question from the public. What should the borough do to alleviate the traffic congestion these projects will inevitably create? Mr. Gray.
Well, you know, when I looked, I asked for and received a pile of paper about that thick on the Russo 1 development so that I could bring myself up to speed. And one of the piles in that large pile was a traffic study that was conducted by the developer. And it indicated that there would be minimal impact from Russo 1. Now, the town does plan to still conduct their own traffic study. So those conclusions are not set in stone. But keep in mind, these are studios, 1-bedrooms mostly. These are people that want to live by the railroad tracks because they want to commute to good jobs, Jersey City and New York. We fully anticipate that the majority of people will be commuters. They'll have great incentive with the rail line right there and the bus station the bus stop right nearby to not use a car. I'm sorry, what was that? Was that the second half of your question? Just the traffic, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have traffic. There's no doubt about it. Obviously, more times of the day, it's heavier. I mean, we have a lot of pass-through traffic. There's no avoiding that. People go from Westfield to Cranford, and Cranford to Westfield, and to the Parkway, and to Union County College. We can't avoid it. We're in the middle of heavy traffic area. I don't think we want to stick our head in the sand and hide from that inevitability. It's going to be a fact of life. Hopefully it won't be as bad as some people think. I mean, there's been dire projections and predictions in the past on other projects that were posed and completed, and as far as I know, a lot of them just didn't come true. So we have to keep a positive attitude. Redevelopment's going to happen.
Time.
Thank you.
Mr. Henry.
Thank you. So first I'd like to say, I would imagine all of us in this room don't like traffic. I don't like it any more than anybody else here. So we have to do what we can to mitigate that issue. And as Mr. Graham pointed out, we've had one study done, and now it's time for Garwood to get an independent study completed to make sure that with any increase in traffic, safety is also a top priority for us. Also, with cars, I know a lot of folks will often say, I don't believe it. Everybody today has at least one car per person, sometimes two. And it's been my generation that's usually being discussed with this, with millennials. Oh, millennials don't really have cars anymore. And a lot of people think that that's just not true. And honestly, I probably am not the best millennial because up until a couple years ago, I owned 2 cars. However, it is true. A lot of millennials do only have 1 car for 1 person or between 2 people. One of my coworkers who lives over in Scotch Plains, he has a car, the wife doesn't. With Uber now, it's pretty easy. If they get in a pinch, they call an Uber. So that is a realistic scenario we're looking at. But again, top priorities here is to mitigate traffic. Nobody wants more traffic. And to be dedicated to safety, because we want to make sure our town is one that's safe to walk around, and we need to do that. Thanks.
Okay, another question. How would you approach the redevelopment of other old industrial sites in Garwood? Mr. Grant?
I'll call you right back.
I'm up behind you, sir.
He was calling me to give me the answer. You know, folks, I'm going to refer back to recent history and you know, just mention that, you know, before the ShopRite was there was an abandoned factory. Before this was here, there was an abandoned factory. Before the Home Depot was there, before St. Anne's, you know, had the school, and you know, that was not being used for years and years and years, and now it's thriving with the senior community. We've got to press ahead. We can't go back. Manufacturing's not coming back. We need to embrace the developers that want to invest in our town. I mean, Russo 1, it's $82 million going to be spent in the center of our town. Google Earth, the center of our town sometimes, folks. You're not going to see a pretty sight. It really impacts you when you look at it and to think that's the center of our less than a square mile town. So we need to embrace redevelopment. We need to do the best job we can as council people and as mayor to make sure we get the best deal possible. It's the best solution for us. It moves us in the right direction. Is everybody going to fall in love with it? Absolutely not. But years and years from now, and these projects do take years and years and years. Russo 1 started in 2010. I don't know how many people realize that. But this process is probably 12 years before anybody puts a key in a lock of a door. And then you're talking about Russo 2, probably years after that. And maybe paperboard someday. But the point is, it's coming. And it's up to us to do the best we can to get the best result. Thank you.
Yes,
Mr. Hisco?
excuse me. Chris?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, like in anything, change is difficult. But when it comes to the redevelopment issue, it's been years and years and years. I've been on the council, as Mr. Connolly pointed out, since 2011. When I first started running for office, I heard people, person after person, say, what are you going to do about these blighted industrial eyesores in the center of our town, on North Avenue? We can't keep looking at this. Look at what our property taxes are, and look at what we're looking at in the main thoroughways of our town. We do have the affordable housing backdrop, so that's why we need to be mindful of that, but also be as tough as we possibly can to make sure that Garwood's getting the best deal from these developers. I've personally sat across the table from Mr. Russo when it comes to the South Avenue project, and I worked to get us more municipal parking spots, because that's what the people said they wanted at the last town hall meeting that Russo held. I also believe going forward, we should hold those developers as accountable as we've held Russo. We need to keep asking them to hold town hall meetings to discuss their potential project before, during, and during construction, and be tough. We have to hire professionals, whether it be a planner, whether it be a redevelopment attorney, financial advisor, so we know that we're getting the best deals here that we possibly can to get the most rateables out of the property. Just one final story. As someone who grew up in Garwood, there was even more blighted industrial eyesores in this town, and my friend over here worked at ShopRite in high school and would walk up this street because employees weren't allowed to park in the parking lot. I'd be a little afraid at night sometimes, because right here was an industrial eyesore, and now it's a beautiful condominium complex with mixed-use retail and rentals across the parking lot, and that's fantastic. So change is good. Let's shepherd it in correctly and be tough and hold these developers accountable, and we can be successful.
Okay, another question. The shared services agreement with Fanwood generated intense controversy a couple of years ago. Has that arrangement been successful? Should Garwood pursue more shared services agreements with other towns, or with the county or the school district? What services should we consider sharing, and with whom? Mr. Grant?
From what I've learned, the shared services deal with Fanwood is very successful. We are getting the same garbage, the same road work, the same, DPW staff is picking up, just as they did before. The faces have stayed the same. We're sharing their equipment. It's been invaluable in saving money, and as we go year after year, we continue to save money. It's absolutely critical that we continue to share services wherever possible, whether it's with a health department or a inspection board or whatever our needs, fire department, go right down the list. A town like ours and many, many more across this state have to embrace shared services or we'll all go broke. I mean, we're too small to support all the services on our own. It's only logical that we continue and to continue to negotiate effectively for a fair share. Some things don't start out that way, but it behooves us to continue to demand more and get the best services for all of us as residents. Thank you.
Mr. Hiskin?
Thank you. So with 565 municipalities in New Jersey, some say there are too many and maybe towns like Garwood shouldn't exist. I don't agree, of course. But shared services are necessary for these towns, especially small ones like ours, to survive. Particularly with this deal with Fanwood, in just the first 2 years, we've saved over $140,000. You don't get to do that every day as a council person. Tough decisions have to be made sometimes. Otherwise, shared services will just be a buzzword. And as Mr. Graham pointed out, we'll all go broke. It has worked. We've saved money. It's the same terrific DPW labor staff, picking up the garbage, plowing the streets, etc. We have been able to use Fanwood equipment from time to time, including a street sweeper, bucket truck. They gave us a Toro cab that we can use to plow sidewalks during the winter. We've used their leaf vacuum. They've helped us winterize our irrigation system at the rec complex, and the list goes on and on. I do believe in investigating shared services. They don't always make sense, and I'll tell you, I'm the last person to ever put Garwood's identity on the line. I'm a very proud fourth-generation resident of Garwood, but we can renegotiate deals. We just renegotiated with Cranford and our building department in our sharing agreement. Above the threshold, Garwood gets a certain percentage back in revenue. We negotiated that up from 20% to 30%. So renegotiating existing shared services makes sense, and also sometimes sharing services does not make sense, as it did at the time when we investigated potential of sharing dispatch. So I think everything should always be looked at. We need to be critical thinkers up there on the council, and sometimes tough decisions do need to be made. Thanks.
Mr. Disco, the Republicans, or at least one faction of the Republicans, have charged that you created a serious conflict of interest involving a Department of Public Works employee, and that you cast an unethical vote on the choice of a DPW foreman. How do you respond to those allegations?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I think there are many more real issues affecting the people of Garwood, but since you asked the question, I'll give you an answer. Anybody that knows me knows I'm not unethical. I did not cast any unethical votes. And the vitriol that's been spewed out by the Republican Party has upset many people, and they've reached out to me and said, I can't believe that we're getting this in the mail in this small town, and local politics is turning into national politics. This is terrible. One person even said to me, and I really don't talk to her often, but I probably haven't talked to her in 3 years, but she reached out to me and said, this is terrible. This is really terrible. I feel for you. I hope you're not discouraged from serving as a elected official because of this type of nasty claims that were made against you. And I said, don't worry, I am absolutely not discouraged, because I love Garwood deeply. I'm 100% committed to this job, and Garwood deserves better. We don't deserve shameful, disgusting politics as usual in this town. It should be about our records and what we can do for the people of Garwood. That's why Russ and I came out with our platform, and we've been communicating it as we walk door to door, and we're here to communicate it tonight.
If you don't mind, I'd like to address that.
Okay.
I mean, what this is, folks, this is a distraction. This is a distraction from what really matters in this town today. And it's also a perfect example of why people don't want to get involved in politics. It's discouraging to see that this can be sent to every home in Garwood. And quite frankly, Sarah and I aren't distracted. We're committed to the plan that we've put forward. We're going to work hard for the residents of this town, and that includes the people that produce this garbage. Thank you.
Garwood has been ordered to complete a tax reevaluation by 2020. How should the borough proceed with that process, and how should we pay for it? Mr. Craig.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Garwood has been ordered to complete a tax reevaluation by 2020. How should the borough proceed with that process, and how should we pay for it?
Well, knowing that the revaluation is mandated, there's no way to get around the issue. It's not something that you voluntarily want to do. I mean, the cost could run as high as $200,000. Hopefully it won't be that high. But the point is, it's a hit. It's a hit to all of us. It can be paid over a 5-year period of time, so we can spread out the pain. But we need to assure all the residents that it may not be as painful as it first appears. Roselle Park had a revaluation not too long ago, and it wasn't an ordeal as they expected it to be. So, you know, let's keep everyone informed when it's going on. Let's try not to hit the panic button on this thing. I mean, many people have lived here a very long time, like my wife and I, 27 years. Are we paying our fair share in taxes? I certainly hope so. You know, I mean...
Don't ask anybody at the point.
Well, you might be surprised to know that we're right up there with it. So, you know, I mean, the taxes obviously in 27 years are a heck of a lot higher than they were when we moved in. And having never had children, unlike maybe a lot of people here at the point at one time did raise families and use the public school system, my wife and I paid our taxes year after year and we never made a complaint. We were happy to support the schools and the roads and everything else, as most good citizens are. I mean, I'm not patting myself on the back. It's just the way it is. We chose to buy a home and we accepted the responsibilities, came along with it. So let's not be afraid of revaluation. Let's just do the best we can to get through it.
Mr. Diskin.
Thank you. So we're completely dedicated to transparency. It can be a scary or daunting task of revaluation. A lot of residents don't necessarily know how it works, and so we're dedicated to transparency. I've been one that has personally asked our tax assessor to come to council meetings once a year at least for the last few years to discuss revaluation because we always knew it was on the horizon. It was one of those things though, unfortunately, it's not like a capital project like a garbage truck that you can save money for. It's something that is an operating expense, and as Mr. Graham pointed out, you'd have to pay over 5 years to try to spread out that pain. Right now, at the last council meeting, we've directed our clerk to do an RFP, a request for proposals, for both tax maps. We have to get those updated in order to even do a revaluation, and also for the revaluation itself, so we can know exactly how much we're looking at in terms of cost. Could be upwards of $200,000. So again, we need to be completely transparent. We need to hold the revaluation firm accountable to come in and to talk to people. And if people aren't happy with their new assessment, there is an appeals process, and I fully support any resident that would want to go through that appeals process if they feel that's the right thing to do for them. And so let's not be scared by this. Let's be responsible, and let's be completely transparent, as it's a really important issue in town.
Okay, what specific, I emphasize, specific steps would you take to control costs and taxes? Please be specific. Mr. Quinn.
Well, I gotta tell you, it's a tough one for a citizen. I haven't seen the budget. I've seen the total budget, but I mean, the simple answer, folks, is we have to look line by line and compare what we spent last year and maybe the year before, and better allocate our dollars. Look at shared services constantly, and just be practical and economical wherever possible. I would have trouble being very specific because I really don't know what our challenges are. I'm not privy to that information. I hope to be. I'll do my best if given that opportunity to provide a succinct answer to your questions and be held accountable when I can or can't live up to your expectations. Thank you.
Mr. Disco.
Yeah. Russ is completely right. Looking line by line is extremely, extremely important. Personally, I've been on the Finance Committee the last 6 years as a council person, many of which have been the chair, and so people started saying I sleep with the budget under my pillow. Not quite true, but I look at it that closely, I might as well, I guess. Essentially, over the last 6 years, I've been able to, line by line, look at the budget and make cuts totaling over $500,000. So by doing that, whether it's cutting $50 here, $100 here, or $10,000 there, it all adds up, and we should be as lean as we possibly can as a government without putting our services in jeopardy, though. Also, I believe in cycling out old equipment, stop throwing good money after bad equipment that's unreliable, and that's why I support Citizens Advisory Panel to help give even more input to the council so that those types of decisions don't become a political war, but instead are grounded in facts as to what's going on. And we have to be very critical of the budget because everybody out there is working hard for their money, and we have to be responsible with that. Also, one last point is to work very closely with department heads. They're the ones day in and day out with their department, and so it's important to have a good communication with them to see their thoughts, get their ideas, and if they work out, they work out. If they don't, they don't, but at least you're always investigating. You're always looking at it, and I've proven that I can make that difference by looking line by line and cutting over $500,000 in the last 6 years.
Okay, if you're sworn into office next January, what will be your first priority? Mr. Graham.
Well, Sarah and I share the same goal in that we do want the mayor to institute the Citizens Advisory Panel. I think it'd be very advantageous to us as a community to get professionals that care, that want to devote their time and their expertise to helping us make the best decisions possible. We come with limited tools to the job. There's no real training for this. We use our life experiences and our backgrounds as best we can, but we don't know things that simply we just don't know, like questions, what they ask and whatnot. On top of that, I'd like to adopt the block program. I think our town deserves to have a better appearance, and I think presenting a challenge to the kids in the school and
1 minute.
The scouts and whatnot, providing them with the right tools and the right incentive, we can keep our town looking cleaner and neater year-round, and not just on a mayor's cleanup day, which was well attended and we did a great job, but we only touched the surface. So we'd like to see the whole town looking spruced up, quite frankly, and the green team is doing a magnificent job of tidying up and cleaning up and pulling weeds and painting and decorating, and it's more of the same that I would like to see happen.
Mr. Hiscomb.
Thank you. To Russ's point, there is no training when you become a council person. I guess it's like becoming a parent. There's no manual for it. However, you know, that is the system of our government here, is that we're self-governed. So when you're looking for people to serve you as elected officials, you know, you got to pick who you think will be best for the job, who has the care, who has the time, who has the ability, who has the record of success, and that's Russ and I. We do bring that to the table. What I would specifically do, in addition to asking the mayor to establish that citizens advisory panel I mentioned twice, is to work together to put a volunteer rewards program together. Volunteers are the heart of this community. They give so much time and resources to making it a little bit of a better place for everybody, and so I would like to see us recognize them even more. I'd also like to see us partner with local businesses that have been really great in town, supporting our programs. I know they help me out with the Lions Club and the EFG. They see me coming. They might think I'm asking for a donation for these various groups, but having those connections with the business community are really important, and I think I can put those connections to work for the residents to come up with a volunteer rewards card program where if you volunteer and your group signs off on it, that you volunteered that year, you'll get a rewards card that you can then use at local businesses that want to participate and get some sort of discount. Obviously, no volunteer does it for that, but it would be nice to recognize them because, again, they are the heart of our small town with a big heart.
Okay, a final question. Why are you better qualified than your opponents?
It's a great question. I mean, I think that I would be able to answer that question a lot easier if we had heard something from them or seen something from them. It's very disappointing that you know, neither one chose to attend. I mean, Sarah and I attended a Columbus Day event at the Knights of Columbus, and it was greatly attended. 180 people in the room. It was fantastic. They raised a lot of money. Mike and Rich were recognized for their hard work and dedication to the Knights, and I don't begrudge them that. And we talked to them after the fact. I mean, we talked to them quite often, and you know, we tried to get a feel for why they chose not to be here tonight, and they just didn't see the value in it. And you know, I mean, we've gone door to door hoping that someone would open up the door and tell us they had just spoken to them and got an insight into what they plan to do for all of us. I mean, they would be my council people as well, you know, if they get elected. So I think we do deserve to know. It's just disappointing that they decided not to be here. I mean, I haven't felt threatened. I haven't seen the police. You know, maybe they're lurking outside. I don't know, but you know, I hope to get out of here with my life, and with your support, I will. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, Russ said a lot there. It's true. When you run for local office, you really need to look at the issues facing the town, sit down, think about new ideas. I've been on council 6 years, but I'm still full of new ideas. I think that's what people want. They don't want you to get stale. They want you to stay fresh, so I'm doing that. Russ and I, why I think we're the better choice is we really have lived lives of commitment to service. And whether it's government service, Russ on the Board of Ed, myself on the council, volunteer service, I mean, this man served our nation in the U.S. Navy. We live commitment to service. That's our motto. And we have the time to dedicate to this job. We have the ability, we have the experience, and we also have records of action. People come to me and they say, you know, there's a tree in front of my house. It looks very dangerous. Limbs have been falling. Can you do something to help? I'm there to help them. I'm there. I'm on the phone. I'm in the town clerk's office saying, what can we do to help these people? They're very concerned, and we get that tree cut down, if that's what it is. If it's the resident reaching out to me saying our train shelter over at our train station only fits about 5 people, and that's pretty tough, and when it's raining or snowing out, is there anything you can do? I contacted New Jersey Transit. We have a bigger shelter there today. So if you're looking for a team that has the care, has the time, has the ability, and has the records of getting things done, then that's us. Thank you.
Okay, we don't usually reach this point until about 9:15. With half as many candidates, you get through the agenda much more quickly. So it's time for 3-minute closing statements. Mr. Brennan.
Well, thank you again for inviting us to be here and for giving Sarah and I the opportunity to share our thoughts and vision for our small town. Sarah and I have spent countless hours since Labor Day weekend walking every street, ringing every bell or knocking on every door, giving each resident a chance to share their concerns or to question us on our positions on the issues. It was also important for people to get to meet me, since I am new to the political scene, whereas Sarah has a long, respectable record of service. I became quite familiar with Sarah's record of service again and again, as various constituents thanked her for seeing to whatever issue they have brought to her attention. There were so many it would take all night to describe them all. I do, however, want to share with you an instance where Sarah was not able to satisfy her request. A resident who was a policeman in another town asked Sarah to instruct the DPW staff to paint a blue line between the double yellow line on Center Street. Other towns in the area had already done it, and it seemed like a worthy request, a very simple and relatively inexpensive way to honor and support our police department. But Sarah was deliberate and conscientious. She checked with the state, county, and proper authority and found that the practice was not allowed by law. Rather than risk public safety, Sarah did not act on the request, and the resident was not happy about it. I bring this up because as we were walking around town a few weeks ago and we approached that gentleman's house, Sarah related the story and warned me that we could be in for an uncomfortable situation. The gentleman was in back of his home by his garage, and Sarah made no attempt to avoid speaking to him. He greeted us, and although still disappointed that the line hadn't been painted, he accepted Sarah's explanation and said he didn't harbor any ill feelings. We spoke for another 30 minutes. It was very pleasant. We left feeling like everything was okay. The point, of course, though, is that we will not be able to satisfy all of your requests, but we will try our best. Regardless of the outcome, we will get back to you and make sure you never feel like you're being ignored. Ladies and gentlemen, please vote for me on November 7th. I promise to do the work and devote the time necessary to serving your needs. But even more importantly, vote for this young woman sitting next to me. Sarah Tedesco is an amazing person. She truly loves this town and dedicates herself fully to serving it. I sincerely doubt that a day goes by where she's not thinking about ways to make everyone's lives better. The future of this town is bright, and Sarah works tirelessly to make it even brighter. Thank you.
That's a tough act to follow, but he's been going first all night, so I guess I should be used to it, but oh wow. You know, I want to thank The Point again for hosting this. This is a real service that you provide our community. Prior to The Point hosting this, to my knowledge, there were not candidates nights for borough council candidates, and it's a really important job, and I appreciate what The Point is doing here, and I really appreciate everybody taking the time out of their busy lives to come here on this Thursday night to listen to us talk about Garwood. And you know, Russ talks about my love of the town and my commitment to it, and I just want to say I couldn't be in that situation if it wasn't for my grandfather dragging me to many Lions Club events. And I have to say, he didn't really have to drag me because I enjoyed going every time. Wow. Oh boy, I wish you went first. I mean second. Anyway, I do want to say, you know, whether it was flipping burgers for the seniors at their picnic over at the gazebo where the rec complex currently stands, or picking up dirty plates at the pancake breakfast, it showed me what can happen when you work hard and you help people, and that's exactly what I'm running.
Thank you to both candidates for appearing this evening, for their commitment to serve the rest of us. Thank you to all of you for joining us. Please enjoy some light refreshments and further conversation, and be sure to vote on November 7th. Thank you.